All right, welcome to our August board meeting. Thank you. September. Okay, thank you for coming to our board meeting. Whatever month it is. I really appreciate seeing everybody. It's good to have an audience because I feel like other people care as much as we do. So thank you, truly thank you for being here. We're just going to go ahead and get started and see if we can just run right through this agenda, Mr. Kirby. So why don't you go ahead and give us your report. And when you're done, you can just turn your time over to the administrators as you see fit.
Okay, we have a few administrators out tonight. Some of them are coaching and working in different Armies and Windies out of the state. So, but we have some people here. Usually we have the host on these situations be the main presenter, and then sometimes everybody else kick in a little bit. So, all right, I'll just go over a few things that happened in the last month. School staff were back in action on Monday, 8/11, with a district-wide kickoff meeting at the high school. Then school started at the high school on Wednesday, and Park Pioneer Middle School started on Thursday. The first week was on one day. Got it all kicked off. Felt like it was a good kickoff, good start to the year. At that time, we had a tree that crashed a bit early. The Luce brothers came and took it out for us, and they ground it down now, so it's completely done with that tree at the middle school. And so appreciated them getting that done. We've talked about our academic achievement, and each of our admin meetings starts off with a discussion about academic achievement, where we're at with it. And of course, so kind of the same idea. I've asked them to all talk about academic achievement in the first part of the board reports this year, so we can make sure we got the focus there. And we've got some really good ideas that the administrators are coming up with. So we have to work with them this year and just to make sure that that's our main focus. And there's lots of other things going on as well, but that's why we're in this business, is to educate students and get them prepared for the next chapter in their life. So we've got a primary focus to discuss. Of course, along that, it's hard to talk about academics when you're 90 degrees in some of your classrooms, and then some of that start off at Pioneer School. That first week was a little rough. They scrambled, got some temporaries in several of the classrooms. Took a couple, 3 weeks to truly get it all settled, but I think we're all good now. Air conditioners are working everywhere. Signature Roofing is a roofing company, and they ran into some things, but they responded and we got it done, so we're rolling there. We chose a general manager for the student center / field house at the high school. It's going to be the Benton company. And they are starting to work with Amanda to finish up the design works as far as the electricity goes and the plumbing. And they have the general design that we put on a napkin, but they got to refine that a little bit better as to where things are going to go. We're going to also have a speaker system out there so we can do announcements because it'll be a student building. And we need to be able to have that communication as well. So we'll have to get all that worked out in that zone. We've had some rain damage and the roof is down off, and I was really frustrated with that. I talked to high school Upton the night before, said, hey guys, big rain, are you ready for it? Because we had a rain and had a little bit of damage in the gym. Anyway, we got some more rain damage, so quite a bit in the auditorium and up on the stage in high school, some of the back rooms. And Upton Roofing has said, we will take care of it. So I think they're going to paint at least a portion of the auditorium ceiling, in which case clearly they didn't stain at all. So we're going to match some of it and try to take care of that and get that painted in the near future. But they're going to bring in the equipment, and we'll have a portion of that cost. But it's mainly quite a bit of it's on them. We also had two computers went down at Pioneer because the rain was coming right down the top of the teacher's desk. One of them since restarted, and one of them's trashed, and so Signatories will take care of that. Told them just get it sealed up, and we'll go around and assess damage afterwards. And so we went there to walk around with some signature representatives, find out what it was, and they said, well, we'll make it right. So they know that they should have been better prepared for that. Let's see, Wednesday, the 27th of August, we had Representative Shippey and Boyle, or Shippey and Church came to the district office. Had a good meeting with them. Jim came to that. Kylie Barb and myself. Patrick Nauman came by to deliver. We had him stick around for a while. Barb, and had a good discussion with our local legislators, trying to just, I guess, establish a relationship, make sure that they can talk to us, we can talk to them. We're clearly not going to agree on everything, but had a really good discussion, I felt. And then I had texted Judy Boyle, and she actually called me in the afternoon, and we had a good discussion. Her main thing is IDLA. She's concerned that Speaker Moyle, I guess some folks are just concerned about the cost of IDLA and whether or not they can afford it to the level that it's currently this year. So she's on board with IDLA. We use it for a lot of our students, especially primarily at the high school, but it really adds, I think, another just another level of education. Our kids can take. They can take German, Japanese if they chose to. They can take classes to catch up if they need credit recovery. It just gives them a lot of options that you couldn't have in a small school, because you just can't hire a teacher to teach Japanese for 2 kids. And so they can get online here, and that works well. And so I'm really hopeful that that program continues. The rigor of those classes, I think, are very similar to what our current high school classes are. So you feel like if a student goes through that program, they flat out got a good education in that particular class. With academic achievement, we've looked at some test scores, and I've asked the administrators to set their IPLP goals, their individual professional learning plans, and those are going to be due tomorrow. I've already received several of them. But one goal is for sure to look at the ISAT test and to try to gain 3% in each curricular area as far as the number of students that are proficient or advanced in language arts, and math, and science. And so that's kind of my charge to them. So they're putting that on their IPLPs, as well as some other goals on academic achievement, and then other things that they're going to accomplish. I still haven't heard anything on our storage shed request. I'm hoping to hear soon. The 90 days is going to run out before too long. We got a temporary permit to have them for 90 days. We have 4 of them. They're all at the high school, various places. So we'll see what the outcome of that is. So I mentioned a while back I was going to send you guys some Weiser history information on test scores. I think everybody get that. So we can kind of see where we were as far as state average. You can see back a few years, we had quite a few areas that were above state average in all the grade levels. And this last year we had 0. And we're gonna work on that, because Weiser's better than that. And I think we'll get there. But it has to be a focus for everywhere. And I think the administrators work with some teachers. I think everybody has some really good ideas on what to do. The ISATs clearly are just a reflection of how effectively our kids have learned the standards of what to teach. And so sometimes people say, oh, I taught that. Okay, that's great. Did the kids learn it? And then can they perform it? So that's kind of what we're measuring with that. So Weiser clearly, I think we'll get back where we were. We're going to have to focus on it and work on it. And if you look at that, in 2014, the test was changing from the old test to the new test. So there was no test that year. And then the next year, the scores are way lower. It goes like from 84% proficient, kind of like to 50 or 60%, like statewide. And it's a totally different test. You can't compare 13 to 15 and above. They're different tests. And so you really can't compare that. But we can always compare Weiser against the state average, where that is. That's a relative constant. as you move up. So that's something we can look at, and we're gonna shoot for those as we move forward. Idaho report cards for all students came in the last couple of weeks, and I sent you guys a link to that to look at. I'm not sure we're going to go over those tonight, but down the road, feel free to come in, or you guys can look at it and probably figure out a lot of stuff. I can help you with those at some point if you'd like it. But those come out for the entire state, and they tell you where you're at. Either Fruitland do, either Fayetteville, either Weiser do, either Weiser do, either Meridian do. And you can see what they're doing. And it's valuable, I think, to kind of compare where we are with them, especially if you look at demographic data such as what are the free and reduced lunch accounts. Those are big because people that do testing will tell you the greatest predictor of standardized test scores is the socioeconomic situation that surrounds your school. That's a constant nationwide. Now, it doesn't mean you can't beat that and get better than that, but so we like to compare ourselves mostly against other similar schools of that nature. But again, state average is always going to be a target for Weiser and try to get above that. I've seen a lot of stuff on our track dispute that we're having with Triple G. If you guys are tired of hearing about that yet, we're just going through it. And in my opinion, and I think all of you have walked up with me, the landscape on the inside of that track is just poorly done. And at this point, we have $18,170 left on our retainage. And we held that back. Everything else has been paid on a $1.2 million project, except for $18,170. And that's what we got a professional landscaping bid to complete that project and to try to do it right. Just level it out so that the water drains into the grates. Otherwise, we're going to have some mud spots all over. A little while back when it rained here a week or two ago, Marcia couldn't even mow down in those areas because it's mud. Okay, now the same thing's going to happen with football players. You're going to run through that mud, and so it just needs fixed. And Triple G says they're done, and we say they're not, and so potentially it could come to a mediation or arbitration or litigation. I don't know where we're going to land. If they just simply don't pay it by October 13th, or if they don't challenge us to the next level by October 13th, they're just going to walk away from that, and then we can take that $18,170 and pay for the landscaping to take care of it. So if they don't respond, that's what we're going to do. Field house is moving forward. It's 80 feet long, 80 feet long, 140 feet long, 80 feet wide. 20 feet on one end is concessions, bathrooms. I had Eric go over and mark it off just for kind of a visual. So if you look in next to the boardroom, the big room for the armory down there, it's 80 feet long, 48 feet wide. So if you look at that, 80 feet is going to go out 140 feet. That's the size of this building. So it's a pretty good sized building. You know, I know there's some discussion about making it bigger. That would have been great. You guys took a look at it, and the majority was you look at being financially responsible as well, because there's a lot of other projects going on. That was partially funded by a levy. $400,000 was toward a levy. It's going to cost us $1.5 million to put that whole thing up, probably. Which $400,000 was levied from our local taxpayers. It's in the works, and it's going to get started. We're going to start putting it up there soon. High school gym, we're finishing it off. In the next day or two, they're going to put the final coat on it. I think now, I told you in my update, 15th, now here in 2 more days, 17th. Wednesday the 17th is probably the date that they're going to turn over and let us begin. So until then, we're out of the main high school gym. If you've driven by the 17 acres up by the high school, Jackson Swift, so I'm trying to say his name, a farmer, cleaned it up really nicely, planted up alfalfa, he was taking care of it. So hopefully he'll move in next year. He says he will sterilize the outer boundaries next spring. Keep that really cleaned up. He's feeling good. All right, any questions?
any damage to the gym?
The first time, there was some damage, and that's why we're a little late. So it's right by so inside the gym, all the doors that would go into the cafeteria, right inside the door, just a little bit, the threshold almost knocked right, it swelled up from the first reaction. So Upton Roofing talked to Hicks Brothers who were doing the flooring, and they agreed that they're going to pay for it, and so they're going to fix it. So just a matter of sanding it down, but took an extra coat, pushed this a little bit later. So yes, so I think it's a little bit shaky. There was none on the second big rain. Didn't do any damage.
Okay, so then, and then the farmer Jack, farmer Jack. So he's gonna take care of the weeds, because the weeds are really bad right now.
You've been there the last couple of days.
Okay, they're better?
Yes.
Okay, I haven't been by there in a couple days, but before that. What about the field where we have the, fiddle? Yeah.
Okay, there's 4 acres there. Basically, that fiddlers should use it now. There's weeds in that, for sure. I did talk to Gary Hill the other day, and he says, I'm going to go out there and knock that down and see this fall. We're not going to watch almost a bunch of water. They used to come to Spring Canada, used to do it, and they said that is tough to water. But I know I went up there in the spring early, and there was grass this high. But they had to knock it down because they were coordinates, and they thought the fiddlers could right across there, so they flattened it out, and then in that next 6 weeks they got 0 rain, not enough to do anything. Because they seeded it then, I think they'll get it seeded this fall. I'm hopeful, but the school district really isn't going to need it. We said, you guys are going to need to take care of it. And so that's the plan. 17 acres, we are making sure that's it.
I just noticed the weeds.
The weeds, there are weeds
really bad.
in the field festival section. Yeah. Yes.
On the sidewalk. Yeah. Okay. Good. Taking care of that.
Any other questions? Thank you. Thanks for that information.
Yep, okay. Steve, I'm for sure is.
Well, welcome. We are always pleased to host the board meeting because we are the best school in the research.
We're the best place tonight.
Yes, for sure. And we're the best because of the staff. We have somebody that's been here for 52 years. We have somebody who's up and that's Mallory Forsythe, and she is our new fourth grade teacher here. Did you want to do the introductions now?
We're going to do that early before reports.
Go ahead.
Okay.
You like it.
Yeah, let's just have
Mallory is prepared to have a big speech.
Go ahead. You can introduce Park School for
Yeah,
us.
it's Mallory's back there. You can just raise your hand. And she's our new fourth grade teacher here at Park School. And then this is Miss Lee. She's been here for a long time.
Okay, so your teachers don't get off that easy, so they have to say something themselves. So have them stand up and present themselves.
Wow.
Steve just took care of that.
From Pioneer Elementary School, we have Gretchen Davis, which we are the best school, as you know. Gretchen is actually pretty amazing.
I did the greenhouse preschool for 17 years here in Weiser. I know I love you. My mom was a secretary with Mr. Walker there for a long time at Pioneer School. I grew up in Weiser. I love it here. My husband and I moved back here, raised our 2 boys. They went through school here, so I'm happy to be part of the team.
Okay, any middle school teachers? Right, stand up. Tell us your name. What you do for the district.
So my name is Angela Banks. I've been teaching for around 18, 19 years. 1 year work Last year I worked at Xavier Charter School as a secondary academic dean, so in administration. I have a doctorate in education. I don't know what to say. I'm from Connecticut mostly. I've been in Idaho for about a year and a half to move closer to my children. But happy to be here.
And I'm Anna Moores, and I'm teaching 6th grade accelerated math and 8th grade digital literacy and STEM. And you don't want to know how many years I've been teaching. 43. 43. 35 of those have been for the Department of Defense education activity overseas. I was a military brat. My dad died in Vietnam. But my family's native to Idaho. And so in the midst of being a dependent, military dependent, I was asking myself, where do I want to retire? And I thought, well, the place where I love living the most, and that was here. So I have a little horse farm in New Plymouth, and well, this is where I've set up my camp forever until I'm dead. So I'm really loving being at the middle school. It's really a joy to be in a different environment than what I've been in for so long.
Thank you. And high school, we have 8 representatives.
Yes, assistant. I'm Cindy Reyes, and I'm teaching physical science and biological science in high school. I was born and raised in Weiser. Back, I graduated from U of I, go Vandals. Yes, I know. But yeah, I worked for Fish and Wildlife Service for their science education program, and then I worked for Policing Park and Rec for wildlife biology, and now I'm back in the public school system for the first time. So glad to be here.
You have a couple relatives in town, man.
Relatives? Yeah, I got quite a few. There's 9 of us, so I think we're all staying. They all moved back when I moved back, so it's great.
All right. Anybody else that is new, that is here to be introduced to the board? You guys all know the board members? You guys probably have to say your name and go around so I know who you are, but school board members up here.
John Walker,
Andrea Williams.
Jim Brush. And I just want to say thank you for talking to us. Not everybody likes to talk in public like we do, so thank you for being here and being willing to share voluntarily.
John Moreau.
I'm Melanie Price.
Melanie, you didn't have a chance. You want to have anything you want to say about Steve while you're here before you get up?
Brought him on set, he's the best, so.
Oh, yeah.
Wow, she's
We didn't see it up proud nosers around here. See who they were. Okay, thank you. You're welcome to stay all night, or you may go as you choose. Those of you that are just interested.
Thank you guys. Thank you.
Just going back, just some of the happenings at Park School. We are fully aware of our academic goals, and ours really starts with the IPLPs, or the individual professional learning plans. They are due for us mid-month. Every single one of our staff who is going to be administering or proctoring the ISAT tests have got their type certification, which is just knowing how to administer ISAT, so we have 100% of those certifications in already. We are offering 6 electives, and so we want to be a little bit more comprehensive with our education in addition to the core courses. We have library, which is focusing on accelerated reader. We have music, and we're going to actually hold 2 performances, one in the Christmas time, another one we're looking at pairing this up with our school carnival. We have physical education with health and well-being, and we are looking into the presidential fitness test. We have skills and positive actions, which is talking about character education. And we sent out, in alignment with our Safe Schools training, we actually sent out to be proactive with bullying. We sent out a questionnaire and the definitions of that. And bullying, while on the topic, we want to make sure that the right definition of bullying is out there, because oftentimes it is misused or overly used without the proper definition. And bullying is, if there is an unfair match, if it causes harm, or if there's repetition, competition. So we actually sent out a 5 questionnaire to all the students. We got about 67% back. We have about 70 that's outstanding, but I would really like to have the students and the parents be aware of this before I hold any meetings with the students, because that word, once again, is overly used, and very little definition is actually known. And so I have the assessment with me, and then so it's going to be used as a criteria before they can have a conversation with me about going, which we will do, but we just want to make sure that the information is accurate. And the last one that we are providing is technology, so they are really getting comfortable with typing and then the Google Suites. And one of our biggest focal points is that making sure that the 4th grade is ready for 5th grade, and then 5th grade is ready for middle school starting in 6th grade. A couple other things for us that are really important is last year we were very heavy with incidents. We averaged just under 5 per day. Right now we have 5 in the first 14 days of school. For me, I think the students are understanding, just because they've grown up in the summertime, there's a lot of maturity that happened, but then every single teacher has 1 extra year of experience, and so the continuity, we believe, is one of the factors. One other thing that we are doing, just to put an emphasis on behaviors, is that we're just running an internal study, is does steps really help out with student behaviors? There's a lot of research that says yes, but we're actually doing an internal one, so I'm actually asking all the staff to wear pedometers, and so we're seeing if the number of steps has a positive effect or correlation with low student behaviors, and right now that's part of the indicator. Obviously there's a lot more variables, but staff have been really good about compliance. They've been on board, and then it also helps to incentivize a little bit as well. But those are some of the initiatives that we are conducting here at Park School. Any questions to answer?
I have one question.
Sure.
Just on your report, your assembly on the 24th.
Correct.
What time is it?
Our assembly is 8:05 to about 8:40, and so that will be the last Wednesday of every single month. And then if I may say one other thing as well, professional development is important. The staff have mentioned the significance and the importance of staff development. I just really like to give credit to Eric and Pioneer School. We've already had a co-op PD training where our Pioneer staff came to our building, and then we worked on CLDS, our career ladder data systems. We worked on Danielson framework, and we also worked on the IPLP. Our next co-op training is actually going to be at Pioneer Elementary, and we're going to work on what they call special education and 504 training, so that we are just versed in that information, because those are very important and highly sensitive. So I would just like to give thanks to Eric and Nicole and the counseling team, because those are essential items that we need. Just more information and more training for our staff.
Okay, so Daniel, you're gonna.
You want to jump in? Okay.
A little bit.
Or somebody that
Right in front of the screen.
Yeah, I think you just
It's not, it's much more, I can do it. It was already there, it's not on that list.
waking up. I was gonna say, don't we all need a minute to wake up?
We can do a little bit of that. Maybe while it's warming up.
Who's the lights?
Oh, there. Oh, it's too high, is the problem. It's up on the ceiling.
I can see it over here.
Yeah. Everybody look up. No. So I compiled all of our, well, I'll just explain it. Bullets and just,
You just have to hold it. It's like the antenna.
Sorry if I'm blank. Close your eyes.
well as the state. So all of these percentages are the percent of kids in each grade level that were proficient or is on the ISAT Advanced. The first graph is the IRI, which is our K-3 students. So you can see the state percentage of proficiency, and then ours. We were really excited at kindergarten to hit that 70% proficient. That's the first time since the IRI has changed that we've gotten up that high. So it was really exciting to see that level of increase, even though the state was higher again. So that's our continuously enrolled. Mr. Kirby said that he will share this report with you guys. I guess you didn't get it, but you'll have it later. Then I also did all students. So the state, we get our percentages for all students, and the state kind of shakes out the kids that were not enrolled for a certain amount of the school year, and that's why the percentages are slightly different. Something to note with the IRI this year is they are changing again. So we had gone from a fluency based, is just how fast could you read. It switched in 2017, I believe, to the iStation test, which was more like multiple choice type of thing. Now it is a speaking test. The students have to talk and read out loud to the computer, and then I'm assuming AI grades it because there's not enough people to grade that test. But it is a lot more of the strands of reading the basics like phonological awareness. Can they read nonsense words? They get fluency passages, there's comprehension questions, there's vocabulary, and none of it is multiple choice. So you take out that are they really good guessers aspect. So all of our scores that we have currently are not going to be comparable. This is the first year with it. Since it is a brand new test, August and September are practice months, and the official fall benchmark is going to take place in October this year, and then we'll get a spring score will be in May, but we can take it each month so the kids can practice in between. I'm hoping we will get everybody tested in September, so October you'll see kind of some baseline scores, but it's not their official benchmark scores, if that makes sense. Any questions on the IRI before I move to ISAT?
Do you know if this spring, is it going to be apples to apples, or is it going to be, you know, like, is it going to be the same test, same format, so that you can compare?
This school year?
Yeah.
Yeah, for each month, yes. It'll be the same format, and they will have to talk every time to the computer.
Okay.
So a lot of it is going to be kids being comfortable with it. We're finding, like, we did get a few practice ones in August, and some of our like high readers are super shy,
Right.
and they wouldn't talk, so they scored tier 3. So we're hoping as they practice, what?
Because the teachers aren't listening, it's the computer listening.
It's the computer scoring it.
I haven't seen it, but I've been hearing about it. So each student has, what is it, wake up squad or something?
Yeah, they do a microphone check, and they have to wake up the dog.
So the dog, yeah,
So-
the dog, they kind of wake up and closes just like everybody else. So that's when they know it's loud enough, so the computers actually register what they're saying. So
There's
also
also,
the kids reading music, it's all across the state, actually.
So it's actually kind of exciting. It uses the facial recognition to make sure they're mouthing it the right way. And then it also gives credit for sound, so it's not the whole word, but if they get part of the word, they get credit for that. So it breaks it down, which gives us a better indicator of where they're at actually reading and what we can do to support them.
we actually have an advantage. Mr. Davis came from a school that piloted the new test, so he's very familiar with it. So I've been learning a lot from him on what it's going to look like. I did include, and we'll just briefly go through here, this is a spreadsheet that I've put together. Mr. Kirby adapted it into the one that he shared with you guys, but it's the historical data for the IRI, so you can see like the state percentages, these are percentages, and then our proficiency increases each year as well. That's a lot of information there. ISAT results. So ELA, continuously enrolled students. We've got the state percentage of proficient or advanced. I combined those two scores. Same with our Weiser ones. So it's broken down here into a spreadsheet or a graph. Weiser is orange. Again, there's the continuously enrolled, and then there will be the all student data is on there. Math, same thing, continuously enrolled. State is blue, Weiser is orange. And all students, and then I also have the same thing in there for science from last year. We, at least at 3rd, 4th, and 5th grade, we have plans in place to be using some of the interim blocks, which are like the practice tests, so we can get some baseline scores there, as well as the lessons that are provided by the Smarter Balanced company that are aligned with the ISATs. We're hoping like the more wording that we use directly from the company, the more confident the kids will be on their tests. So we're really hoping that will help with our ISAT scores in the spring. And then again, I've got the graph with the historical data all the way back to 2006 for each subject area. Any questions for me?
I appreciate that we're putting emphasis on this. Yes, it's kind of discouraging to look at.
Is there, I'm not exactly sure how to say it, but as you're watching the cohorts go from year to year, there's certain classes that are consistently struggling throughout. Like if you were to go back to your graph that you had of the fall, I don't remember which graph it was. One of those classes, it looked like consistently year after year was at least 10 points below the state average. Current 4th grade class and the current 2nd grade class, both of them, they were struggling through the years. Is there something we can do from just a overall district to help those classes specifically? Are there, I mean, like, why are their tests specifically so much lower than the rest all the way across the board?
That's a great question. I mean, some of that is just the students themselves. A lot of that you'll see from what I'm just glancing at on this historical data right here, which is color-coded by grade levels, so you can see specific grade levels, their scores. Are you talking ISATs or IRI?
This would be, I believe in IRI, it's
4th grade, guys, yes, 1st, 2nd, 3rd.
first, well, yeah, it's 1st, 2nd, and 3rd. So when I say current 4th grade, obviously it's 3rd grade last year.
I think it's a combination of a bunch of different things. Changing curriculum is part of it. We did get a new curriculum 3 years ago for reading. Staff changes. We've got the jump from like the 2nd grade, why that always seems to be just a little bit lower than kinder 1st is because the expectation of what they're able to do changes. You know, 3rd grade, it switches again to reading to learn instead of learning to read, and 2nd grade is kind of that middle ground in there, so that's part of it.
I was going to say, the test is not the same.
Right, the kindergarten has different tests than 1st grade. 1st grade has a different one than 2nd grade.
Sure, and I would understand that if that were, like, if I mean, comparing apples to apples, if you're talking about, just taking this graph, for example, like for kindergarten in 2023, school year, the proficiency increase for the statewide was 16. We were -1. We actually went
Down the
backwards,
proficiency.
right? And that class, you follow them up by cohort to 1st and 2nd grade, 2020, 2024, 25. The state increased by 10 points, we increased by 5. Right, so like looking at the class, that class is struggling down the line. You go 2 classes up, the same thing happens. So
that's my question, is what can we do for those specific classes, or that specific group of kids that obviously are struggling to meet the state report? Is there something that we're looking at there and going, okay, what can we do to help this specific group?
Yeah, I think the dyslexia screening and stuff that we've started the last few years is also helping with that aspect, because we are identifying those kids that have more need than just your normal, like, learning how to read and stuff, which is from the results of that screening. We've got specific intervention programs. And last year at Pioneer, we implemented that program grade level wise. And so all the kids got the program, and our proficiency, well, you saw like kindergarten was almost at the state proficiency level. Our first grade still has some work to do. Our second grade beat the state proficiency increase. Third grade's kind of tough because they not only have the IRI, but they've got the ISATs too. So it's kind of tricky balancing like the needs there of preparing them for this really high stakes test, but also transitioning them from a different test. So that's probably why we don't see the proficiency increase there. The kids are kind of like, oh, which one do I need to focus on? Which one do I need to try the hardest on at that point? I think just having the right interventions in place and recognizing, identifying what those kids need is what it's going to take. And that's going to be a lot more looking at the data. This new test, I think, is going to identify those holes a lot better, this new IRI test. Like I said, we weren't able to, for whatever reason, we couldn't get all the scores back from August, so we don't have all the kids. So I'm hoping this month we'll have better information from that test. Yeah.
And you know that we're having conversations with Eric and Steve and Wendy about ramping up our accelerated reader program. Just simply reading at things at the grade level of each student, what they like to read. It's outside of just lesson. Because the more and more they read, the better we can't read. If we don't practice this, we don't get very good. And so I do know that different administrators through the years have their focus on whether accelerated reader is important or not. And I don't know, I'm just a huge, strong opponent of accelerated reading. And some are very excited about it. So we incentivize it some of these younger ages and then give some extrinsic rewards. It's the goal to read, and then pretty soon they're reading intrinsically, and then develop lifetime reading habits. And they can read well, they can do their science, and they can do their math, story problems, and read the rest. Reading is so key in K-5. It just has to be a huge focus. And, I think they're having a lot of good discussions about it and how to move that. And I always think this is the changes.
What is this year 2 on foundation?
Is what?
Year 2 on foundation?
No, 3. Year 3 with foundations. Last year was the first year school-wide. I will say, as far as the rewards go, we found with our kindergartners, a full-size candy bar really motivates them to do their very best on the spring score, which probably explains why we had 70% of them proficient at the end of the year. They wanted those candy bars. So apparently we need to look at motivating the first graders in a different way.
Well, that's key too. If they don't care, it's just something to do. They know, you get the best shot. You have to figure out how to get the best shot at every grade level. And that's key as well. So.
And we had the Department of Education the other day, Camila from SMART, the reading of science. And she was just in there help going over some of the stuff with teachers and helping them with the science of reading.
We're trying.
Yeah.
You're doing it right.
Good stuff. Okay, I don't know. Jeff, you want to say a couple words? Cole and Barbara.
I'll make it quick. I gave you that board report that's got pretty much what's going on in the net. One thing I did realize I forgot, we have had the privilege of having Sterling Fitch, our up at our building for a couple of weeks to help us out with some students that bring some challenges in with them, and he's doing a wonderful job at that, and I want to commend him and the work that he does, and he's fantastic at what he does. And his level of patience. Sterling Fitch.
Okay.
He's our school psychologist.
Okay.
So, he's a quiet guy, and you probably wouldn't notice he was in the room most of the time, but he's fantastic at what he does. So I want to mention that. One other thing that in the report, I did mention that we expected a student to graduate at the end of this first session. Probably she still will, but she asked me today if she could graduate at the end of the second session, because the end of the second session is right at Thanksgiving time. She's going to have family in town. So I said, hey, yeah, we'll do that, no problem. So we won't have a graduation for a first session because of that, but we probably will have a couple more girls.
It'll be October 1st, maybe not.
No, the October 1st we won't have anything, because
It was in one of the attachments. It was in.
so that would become November 20th.
Oh, the one that's September. It's the, sorry.
Oh, it was on the,
Oh,
I was like, I put it on the link.
yeah, it was on there. Very well.
Any questions for me? Short and sweet.
I just want to mention, Sterling is a school psychologist. He's really good with the leaders, and we were able to change his schedule this year. He'd been teaching 2 high school math classes, and he's doing a fine job, but his focus is on school psych and behaviors. So we're able to take him out of the math classes so we can do more focus on behaviors. So he's going to help out at different levels, kind of put him at the alternative school early on. That was kind of a few more concerns that way, but really appreciate having him. He's got a little change in science, so he can spend more time on that. So I think that's what helps.
And Mr. Davis. Yes, what kind of financial score? Did you get financial score yet?
I sent a report.
I sent that to you.
No, I know.
Yes,
He
yes.
hasn't got to speak.
He did, well, he kind of did, well, anything else you want to tell him?
Plus, you guys haven't met Mr. Davis or Mrs. Gallavone, so you guys are going to, these are new administrators.
I was hired because they just dropped the E off of Davies.
And moved it to the front.
I saved money since, paper and stuff. Yeah, that's what everything, yeah.
I'm sorry, Kyle. This is our pioneer principal, Davis.
Hello. You guys did approve me last May?
We decided they were going to heat him out of the building for the first 3 weeks.
Hey, but the staff was amazing, parents were amazing, district was amazing, and everybody worked together. So.
Good now?
Yeah, it's all good. Yeah.
Okay, I heard something about him I never thought I would ever hear. Okay.
I look forward.
Mr. Davies, you guys know Mr. Davies. Like some teacher said, Mr. Davis is Mr. Davies on steroids. That is something different.
That is something.
Careful how you report that.
Can we sponge that from the
Let's clarify a little bit.
But he, high
His
energy,
energy
he's
level.
organized, helping people, and I know the teachers are really positive so far.
I don't know how he hasn't crashed yet, honestly. He is all over
One
that
day,
building.
one day.
He is on the move.
Life's over.
Yes.
Okay, Daniel knows. Okay, Cole Alabama, new SPED teacher. Sorry if I haven't introduced you. Tell us who you are and what you're doing.
Nicole Alabama, the new special education director for the district, and I'm very excited to join the team, getting to know everybody and getting to know the teachers and the buildings and the principals. Everyone's been amazing so far. Kicked off the year with a good professional development with my special education teacher team, and we're just rolling. I shared a report with you on some academic goals for this year. I am going to be supporting my special education teachers in meeting these goals. We are looking at reading goals for K through 8. By May, 75% of students with IEPs in grades K through 8 will be on track to meet or exceed their annual growth targets in reading, as measured by a combination of the IRI, CBM, ISAT. We have IXL at the middle school, and then ISAT and CBM through the grades through 7 and 8 as well. So we have CBM, ISAT, and IXL at the middle school. And then 9 through 12, by May, 51% of high school students with IEPs will meet or exceed their annual growth targets in reading as measured by ISAT results and progress toward their IEP goals. And then looking at math goals, this is K-12. I would like to see by May 70% of students with IEPs in grades K through 12 to meet or exceed their annual growth targets in math, measured by the ISAT performance, CBM, and then IXL progress monitoring as well. So I will be supporting teachers with that progress monitoring as needed, and one of the things I plan on doing, which I didn't include in the report, is helping teachers with those interim block assessments, those practice tests, giving them to their students, and then showing them how to actually access their accommodations. A lot of students need that additional help with all the accommodations they have on their IEPs. How do they access that? How do they use them? So they need to practice that in the classroom before the actual test. And I think that's going to help level the playing field and help them make those strides to make that goal. One note on Medicaid, I've been working on this revalidation process. Gainwell Technologies, since I started, I've been working on this revalidation process. It's been a bit of a pain, but we have an extension to September 30th to get this completed. I am on top of it. Medicaid has indicated that if the revalidation is not completed, then we will no longer be able to bill for services, so it's very important on top of my list. I'm bugging them every single day. That's Mr. Kirby knows, because I'm bugging him too, to see if he's received an email from them yet. And then just to share with you that I will be reporting out numbers just like Mrs. Halverson did last year. So the graph that you have, or the spreadsheet, has numbers that were reported at the end of the school year. That's going to be my base. And then at the end of September, I will be adding in those new numbers so you can see where we're at starting the school year. Right now we have 14 new students starting with IEPs. So we've had quite a few starting this year. Do you have any questions for me? Nice to meet you. Yes. Thank you. Last year was teaching up in Cascade. I was the special education director and the teacher and administrator up there in Cascade, supporting a team with another administrator. And then prior to that, I was in Caldwell and then in Nampa. I have 9 years total of education, 7 years in special education, 2 years teaching art in high school in Caldwell.
Okay, Barb?
I think I'm late on the
Are you late early? Okay. I was trying to get you up there earlier.
All right, we got through. There's no citizen comments, so we
Stand up. Been working all day. Sorry. So we had our first meeting last Thursday. Our Region 3 representative Tracy B. came, and that was fun. We talked about things that we want to do for our teachers, like before negotiations, we'd like to give teachers a heads up. Hey, negotiations are going to be soon. What are some things that you think we should think think about, and here are some, just because I know teachers and I know myself before I came a part of this position, I did not necessarily look at all the policies the way that I probably should. So, we're just gonna give them a little bump and say, hey, check these out, and just see what's up. Not that anything's wrong, don't feel like I'm like attacking. It's just a conversation. We talked about the third grade teachers, where there are 3 of us who are a part of the union now, so that's exciting. We're working hard to navigate our new IPLP ISAT goal, because we've never had that before. There is no baseline for 3rd grade on the ISAT, because we've never taken one. So we spent all afternoon today actually troubleshooting internet and the Chromebook browsers and the how to log on and the power washing all the computers. It feels like brainwashing at this point in the day. And finally, 3 out of 4 classes were able to take their first interim ISAT ELA block. We're also taking the Amira ISIP test, math and reading this week, and 2 other ISAT blocks this week. So 3rd grade is testing this week. And then the Pioneer staff is really enjoying our new principal.
Did you pay you?
No.
I don't think Steve.
We had comments about the district lunch. Everyone thought it was a nice opportunity to get to connect with our colleagues, and really appreciated the water bottles, which came in handy due to other circumstances. And over at the high school, the newly improved parking lots have been greatly appreciated because it's making things a little smoother. Okay, that's all I got. Thank you, guys.
We're going to move right on. Did everybody get an opportunity to read the minutes from our prior meetings? Is there any questions or updates in this meeting?
I just changed something, and I probably need to point out that Amanda's name is Amanda Bidwell, not Bridwell, and so I changed it. There you go. That's the one amendment that I made for you.
Sadly enough, I probably looked at the notes.
But I thought that was interesting that we were accepting bid proposals and her name was Bidwell. Just kind of went with it, right?
Let's hit the big red dots.
That's right.
Any resignation of time notices this early in the school year that we need to do that? There's not in here, right? Oh, current agenda. Any changes? No changes to the current agenda that I know of. Okay. Are we hiring anybody yet? Yeah.
That was the thing back there, she was hired, like, she fell out of heaven, I'll tell you, so that was pretty sweet. She comes to us in the middle school, she's teaching English. English teachers are tough to find, and this lady just happened to be working at the right time, and called her and asked if we were still hiring, and I said, please come in, and sent her resume, and she was very well received. So usually the last minute August hires, when your contract runs, sometimes not so sure why they're still looking in August, and we were very lucky to find her. She's very good. So she's new, and we've got a contract for her. Mrs. Wars. Excuse me? Anna Morris, too. She was a late hire as well, but we had interviewed her at a point. We were still looking for the multi-subject and English teacher, and we weren't really sure which we were going to offer. So then when we had Angela come and she wanted to do English, then we were able to offer Anna Morris the multi-subject. So that worked out for both of them because Anna really wanted to do the multi-subject. So both of those are kind of line items, yes.
We need to approve both those.
Yes, so that's, you have to approve those.
Okay. Consideration of the our consent agenda.
Me?
Financial report.
Yeah, I get to talk officially. Come in, Coach. All right, your financial statement this month looks considerably different than it did last month. And if you recall, in the report that I submitted, July and August salaries are the last payment for the prior fiscal year. So we accrue those so that they're reported in our audit in June. And then after they're actually paid, I reverse those accrued entries. So really no salaries have been paid to date for any of our educational line items. So if you look at elementary education, we've spent less than 1% of our budget because it represents no salaries because those contract payments, the very first contract payment for salary will be in September. So from this point forward, we should start seeing that 8% ticking forward in those educational line items. The 1% that you see in there are going to be the supplies that they purchased to this point, workers' comp insurance that's due July 1, some of those kinds of things. But salaries represent 92-93% of our budget. And so you'll see those start ticking in when we look at the September 30th financial statements. Alternative school, this is our summer alternative school. We expect 100% of that to be spent at this point in time. Because while the school starts the middle of June, their very first payroll doesn't occur until July. And so we match the revenue with the expense for that because we get paid for that summer school. Even though it's considered an FY25 summer school, for those students who need summer school in order to graduate on time, they can still be a regular graduate. If they're taking summer school and need to graduate their senior year, they're still considered an on-time graduate. But because the revenue for the alternative school comes in FY26, we report the expenses for alternative school in FY26. So both of those pieces come forward to match the revenue with the expense. So we expect to see that's what has been spent now in that alternative school is everything except the supplies that they'll need to start up next year's summer school. So those are the line items that you see there. So you should see that 86% kind of travel along there all year long. We shouldn't see an increase in there unless they recognize a curriculum that they need to purchase now to be prepared for summer, so along those lines. So you see that we're really at the 1% until you get down to books and periodicals. And the high school has purchased some statistics books, and so they've used that for this year, so that's why you see that line item increase there. And then Board of Trustees is actually a July 1 beginning of their budget, and so that's your annual dues to ISBA. It's the portion of the reservations that we've already paid for the quarterly and annual convention, and some of those kinds of things are what you're seeing come out of that particular line item. District administration is also a July 1 start because we're year-round employees. So our salaries go from July through June. The same thing for the maintenance and the grounds. That's going to be a July 1 start date. So you'll see that we've got, roughly we should be looking at 25% in that area, but it's not, in district administration, there are a lot of additional expenses associated with that. That's where a lot of our licensing is and some of those kinds of things. And so we might not always see that 8% average because there's single lump sum annual items that occur in those line items. Nothing that is extraordinary or, that is concerning at this point in time. Building care, we're doing a lot of work on our buildings. Some floors have been repaired. And some boilers have gone out already and some of those kinds of things, and just the annual maintenance. The boilers at the middle school have to be serviced every year, and the cooling solution, I won't use any of the right terminology, so we'll just call it cooling solution in the boilers, has to be replaced. And so those significant costs occur over the summer so that we're ready to start school with adequate equipment. So as you look down into safe schools, we have purchased a product this year called Hapara. It is part of the Gaggle network. You might be familiar with Go Guardian. GoGuardian is a tool that the teachers used in the past where they can see what their students are looking at on their computer without having to walk behind them, because kids learn very quickly to change their screen so you don't see what they're looking at. But now from the teacher's desk, they can see what each of the students has up on their screen, and they can control it, and they can block it, and they can get them off there. So Para was a third of the cost of what GoGuardian was, and it's actually a more user-friendly product from a technology standpoint. I've not visited with the teacher yet to know how user-friendly it is from the teacher standpoint, but I know from the technology background standpoint, and we do have a learning curve this year going from GoGuardian to Para, but the tools that are available in Para are much more significant than they were with GoGuardian for a much less price. And we've talked about the fact that the technology budget is not sufficient to support technology needs. These types of expenses were paid for out of the technology budget in the past, and now they're coming out of general fund under that Safe Schools, because it's how we're keeping our children safe by monitoring what the programs are that they're on, and when they do a Google search, we know what that is. Let's see, as we get down in here, support services for the lunch program, that's the general fund is required to pay Social Security taxes for food services payroll. So that's what that line item represents. So as you get down to the total bottom line, we've spent 5% of our budget as we get into September. So that's really where we want to be. And all of our checking accounts are in balance. You will see a difference on the payroll account of $156.29. We cut the checks and then we pay everything electronically for some of those benefits. And for whatever reason, the Delta Dental piece didn't process the way that it was supposed to. That's all been corrected, and that one has already cleared this month. So it is not actually out of balance. So that's your general fund. As you look over onto all of your other funds, you'll see that we've spent $4,738 in our Federal Forest Reserve Fund. We don't know whether or not we're going to be getting any federal forest money again this year. Last year we only received $3,600 when historically we received between $40,000 and $60,000. That is still up in the air on whether or not the federal government is going to fund those schools that encompass federal forest ground. So the dollars that we spent there were for the water bottles that were the welcome back gifts for staff that you've heard some folks talk about. And the water bottles were kind of an add-on to the Lower Foundation grant we received last year to put in the touchless water bottle filling stations into all of our schools that didn't have one before. So now we can help save our environment by not having plastic water bottles, and you can see on the filter count how many bottles have been saved for every time you fill out a water bottle. So every staff member was provided with that water bottle so that they can hydrate and work with being economical as well as environmentally friendly with all of that. So that's what that dollar amount was spent on. The rest of it is all just normal things. As you look down to the technology budget, you'll remember that this year it was a need to replace at least 400 of our Chromebooks. We did go to bid on that and receive those Chromebooks. Our initial pricing was in the $160,000 range. We were able to get them for right at $100,000. And so that frees up a little bit of supply money in that technology budget. But those have been purchased, are in the process of being what they call flashed and distributed out to buildings and students. And again, nothing out of the ordinary in any of the line items that we're looking at. The Gear Up grant, we still do not know whether or not the federal government is going to continue that grant for us. The grant that we have expired last year. The state of Idaho approved the continuation of that grant for 5 years, but the federal government has not said whether or not they will fund that particular grant, and it is a federal grant. So if the feds say that we get the money, it's already approved and we'll get it. So the money that we had has to be spent by September 30th. So you'll see that be a fairly significant amount coming in September, because there's $10,000 left in that grant, and I'm not going to send any money back to anybody. So we'll spend $10,000 this month, so all of that does in fact get spent. And fingers crossed that when the federal government does approve that program again. The Gear Up program is the one at the high schools where they're really working hard to get all of our kids ready for college or their career. with a large part of the funds last year, Stacia Durrell purchased laptops and MacBooks for Kelsey Mason's business class. So utilizing that technology to teach those kids how to, walk right out of high school into a marketing class, or have the tools that they need to go on into college and excel in those areas. So that's how she's utilized a big chunk of those funds. And so school modernization, the $1.1 million that we've spent is on our roofs and on our basketball court at the high school. We've talked a lot about those funds, and there's $4.3 million left there. The Student Center will be paid with multiple resources. And one of them I'll talk about in just a second is the levy dollars for this year. I do want to talk about that. And then another place is school modernization money will be redirected to pay for the field house, because as we fine-tuned our 10-year plan, we found some excesses in those dollars. And then the $400,000 that the voters approved last year, we used $400,000 this last year to contribute towards the $1.2 million that we spent on the track. The $400,000 that we get this year will be a portion of what we use to pay for the $1.5 million student center. And now I just want to take a brief minute and talk just a little bit about levy dollars, not about the new levy that's going to be on the ballot in November, but about the one that our voters passed last year. So last May, we went we ran a levy for a supplemental levy for $750,000. $400,000 was to pay for the track that was and the student center for last year, and then all-day kindergarten, no pay to play, and all of those kinds of things. So that levy is still in place this year, and I just filed the forms with the county to have them collect the taxes for us to pay for those dollars. You'll remember last year what we put into the newspaper, we got more money than what we levied. So while the taxpayers approved that levy, they paid nothing for it. But we still utilized their purpose and what they understood for the money that we got from the state for the facilities payment to pay down those taxes. We still used it exactly as we promised that we would use their levy dollars. On September 4th, we got $1,251,437 from the state to pay down our levies again. So while our voters approved that, and we've asked our voters to pay that, they're not going to have to pay that again this year. And not only are they not going to have to pay that supplemental levy, they're also not going to pay anything on our plant facilities. The $1.2 million covers 100% of what we levy our taxpayers, that there is property tax relief legislated for. So of the $1.1 million that we levy, $1.2 million was received from the state to pay for that, which frees up $197,000 that must be spent on school facilities, but it's up to the board on how those dollars are going to be spent for those facilities. You can spend them on the student center. The high school has a need for new lockers. You can spend them on those new lockers. We're going to need to put on 2 more school roofs this next summer, so those dollars can be used for that. So very exciting news, I felt. We are authorized by our taxpayers to levy almost $1.2 million. And the total amount that they will pay this year is $53,000. 27,000 of that is, you may have seen in the newspapers last year, Idaho Power got a judgment that went through the Supreme Court, so they got 4 years worth of their property taxes back. Well, the county doesn't have the ability just to write a check. The way they write that check is taking that money from all of us, and then we're given the opportunity to ask for it back in the next year. So we did ask the county to pay us back the $27,000 that they had to refund to Idaho Power from our coffers. So that's $27,000 of that $53,000. And then we have a line item called a tort tax. Tort tax is a liability insurance premium that we have to pay. And there's a calculation that goes in there that says how much that's going to be. And I believe it was in 2000, it was in the way early 2000s when they did an ag property tax relief. They came in and paid a portion of that tort tax. And then in 2021, they did an additional property tax relief that comes back in and pays a portion of that tort tax. So our tort tax is $46,000, but because of everything that we received from the legislature to reduce that tax, we're only going to tax $26,000. So that's been paid down by property tax relief dollars as well, leaving our taxpayers only are going to write a check to the county for the betterment of the school of about $53,000, down from $1.2 million. So that's a fabulous deal that I'm really excited about. So yes, and we received that full $1.1 million as a lump sum, and we received that last week, and we've invested that into our LGIP accounts at the state, and they're still paying a little bit over 4%. So we'll, on that $1 million, we'll get that interest rate on that as well. So exciting times to be in school finance.
I'm so glad you're excited. I'm so glad.
I love my numbers.
Motion's been made and seconded to accept the consent agenda. All those in favor? All right. We have a few action items to take care of. The first one on the agenda is approving high school travel for fiscal year 26. That's something that we do every year.
Choose big lots. And so a lot of these travel requests are coming in saying we don't utilize a van. Does not require us to have a CDL bus driver, because we have CDL advisor or the coach to drive for them. And these are just the ones that they have. So I will tell you, it saves us on gas, it saves us on the bus, and saves us on the short bus ride. So thank you for that. It does go out quite a bit.
Well, thank you to Lockport for being able to drive a bus.
Yeah, exactly. Sure. Well, the only limitation we have is those 15, so if this provides team, which he does have a lot of kids in the provides, so that's how he does for that reason.
Any questions on this?
The only question I had was for career exploration. A bunch of TVs, don't know the date, don't know the location, just know it's going to be fall, winter, spring. I assume that approval of using the van on those would be dependent upon the van actually being available.
Yeah, that's true. Sometimes it just depends on the school that they're visiting has or and their information and kids to go. So it's usually in the fall. It's usually Amy Erickson is our person that does that. And she can drive the van, so she's one more station. Sometimes they will go to as well. Yeah, hopefully that's relocated within the station. Stacy can hear up first.
I make a motion that we approve the high school travel for fiscal year 26. Second.
Okay. Motion that made and seconded for fiscal travel. All those in favor? Aye. Okay. The second is to consider approval of the Weiser High School District EDGAR plan and federal purchasing policies.
Know the acronym for EDGAR.
Education Department General Administration Regulations.
Yes.
Yes, that's what it is. But it is the, I would say, for lack of a better term, Bible for our special ed and our federal programs. We require by law to subscribe to the policies that are in that manual. Now, I will tell you, Barb pointed it out to me today, and I just did not have time. I will not probably have time for the next couple weeks. But there's some policies on procurement. One of the things that is covered in the EDGAR manual is procurement. And so, since we're adopting new policies in 7,000 on procurement, those will be updated in this manual. So if we would make a motion to approve the EDGAR manual, just make it a caveat that there are some new policies, the updated policy will go into that. Is that all that? Sorry. It's not easy to do that.
Well, I
No,
Which is,
no, this is just the spending.
I move that we approve the Weiser School District EDGAR plan, considering the update of policies. Second.
Okay, motion been made and seconded to add in updated policies. All those in favor? Okay, thank you. FY26 Continuous Improvement Plan.
Okay, we should have two safety packets here, one's yellow, front, which this is going to be a little bit like the EDGAR plan, because this is a continuous improvement plan, and I kind of helped me dig out some files from the previous superintendent. Just discovered. It says what to do with these September, October, November, December, and so this is to be completed and submitted by October 4. And if you have it, I looked through it, and I will share this with our administrators tomorrow. And from each building, we have to make some adjustments, basically on what our current performance targets are, what our current scores are, targets for next year. And so I use this format, and it's not going to change much, but the numbers are going to be slightly different goals. And so I will send this to you prior to October 1, and more of my updates. I guess I'm going to approve our opinions, improvement plan. And like the EDGAR plans hasn't been completed yet. I don't know what much else to do on this one.
state statute says we have to have it up on October 1.
It's got to be sent in to the state before.
It's got to be on our website.
What's that?
It's got to be on our website.
Yes, we'll send it to you on an update, and we'll post it on the website. It's just a matter of going in there and changing our approach towards people. Early 2025, setting new goals. I just learned about this Thursday.
So this is the same type of thing you're asking us to approve a plan based on some the changes that we made so that we can enforce them. Yes. When that time comes, because we will not meet again before that. Unless we have a special meeting. And we love special meetings. So I really get into the discussion on that as to how we're going to figure out that. Approving the plan, it still needs to be updated, or not a special meeting.
So this will all be updated, this is all going to be updated, or?
I think a lot of the verbiage is what he's saying is that's going to be kind of, other than that has to do with goals and going, that would be changed a little bit. But the general format of it would probably keep in mind with that.
The mission, vision, and goals are changing, they've been in place
Right.
for 20 years.
We need to work on that.
Yes, supposed to do it to begin.
But no, that's one of the things that we're doing. That's right.
Yeah.
How's everybody's thoughts? We just wait to get that in a special meeting for the year.
It's a fluid document, we just have to have kind of pieces out there. If we feel like there's something that comes up that we need to change something, we can always amend it. But the general October 1st FY26 SIP plan has to be out there. Sorry, it came fast. Fast and furious, there's a lot of parts to this.
Discussing, that's fine, we get that. We're just discussing, maybe we need to have a special meeting to,
Just talking about how everybody's feeling about, okay, I think we're going to get the document out. Do we want to table this and have a special meeting so that we can look at the numbers, or we want to approve?
You can't really table it.
Well, I mean, until, right. But in this specific meeting, and having another special meeting to approve what's put before us as closer to a future. Yes.
You can't do that.
Yeah.
Instead of whatever you guys are comfortable with.
I'm just asking.
or do you feel like the better thing to do would be get it up and then we
I
have.
don't think Mr. Kirby is planning on doing a haphazard SIP plan. I think he's got some very specific ideas going on, and I would highly recommend just approving it to, and then do a reconsider of it at your next board meeting or at the work session to see what the numbers were and if we were talking.
Knowing that it's a meeting document feels
So we could
much better.
Yes.
I just wanted, I agree, I'm agreeing with you, I just wanted the board with the opportunity.
Absolutely.
We're voting on something.
Right.
So I would entertain a motion if it's going to have to be similar to what we just motioned with.
And I don't think it's a bad idea for you to review your SIP plan more than once. I think you need to look at it.
It should be,
And it's
yeah.
continuous, the word continuous is part of the title, so, yes, look at it and look at it.
I don't have a problem making that motion to approve the continuous improvement plan and also requesting that it be on the future agenda so that we can make sure it's working. I'll second.
Okay. Motion been made and second to approve SIP plan and continues approval of SIP. Continues approval plan. All those in favor? I obviously didn't have to be. Good. We just can't help ourselves but to change, to have the need to change signatures. So we need to consider signature changes in Pioneer, removing Mr. Davies and adding Mr. Davies on steroids. Mr. Davis, there's a list here.
Christy
Yeah.
Wade is out in Shauna Ridge, yeah.
There's a list of those names coming in that already.
And they're checking to the, to submit So it's good to have a few people so that in case someone's out for the summer or something, they can get this chance.
I move that we approve the change in signatories in Pathfinder School as listed. Second.
Okay, motion been made and seconded for the signature changes in Pioneer School. All those in favor? Aye. Okay. You're gonna have to give this kid this. The next thing on our agenda is one of this board's favorite thing to talk about. If you don't know, I'll just remind you of policies, and it's one of our main jobs. Wow, there are a lot of policies that we have gone over, had special meetings for, and we've got a great manual for it. So I appreciate the board's hard work on this. We have got 15 policies. We amended our board rule and went over these policies. Does anybody have any questions? There were just a few changes that.
The big changes in there that we requested and proceeded. Again, those public, the 7,400 that have to do with this contract. If you adopt that tonight, it's all down to the budget. So
I'll make a motion that we accept the second reading of the listed policies under subsection E and adopt them as policies.
I'll second it. Motion's been made and seconded for all these policies. All those in favor? Aye. I gotta find where I'm at.
this is the next one is that policy
1303.
and those are the list of policies that have to be reviewed annually. And I have to say I beg your pardon because I know that we did these back in April and we reviewed them. But April's not the time for us to review these policies. They should be reviewed in September moving forward for the FY26. So we did just review these. So there's a couple like the emergency and disaster preparedness at 8,300. By adopting what we adopted, we basically did review that. Some of the other ones, there was no change in the policies, especially since April. So these will probably come before you, but they'll come before you every September, and hopefully we won't have the other, is it 15 or 20 but I don't know if the legislature changing the year takes us in July to look at that and then we'll start moving on policies. Anyway, that is what they are right now.
So I'll make a motion that we approve the policies in policy 1303 as an annual review.
Can I ask a super quick question? Sure. I just noticed there are several of the last year's reviewed by another department. And some of them I'm assuming are when we are audited, like the accounting
The
system.
fund accounting system and the bond.
The use of restraint, seclusion, and adverse techniques for students. Who's the outside party?
We have our administrators review those, and so those and the counselors, they do it. Yes. So they have seen these policies. I haven't had any feedback from them. I did not tell them, hey, we're reviewing these, but last April,
Yes, perfect.
So we are policy 1303, all those policies in that is covered. So we are making a motion to accept policy 1303. One policy.
Well, you're accepting
That
that,
is
but
going
I
to
haven't
review all those
stated
others.
that we're going to review the 60,
Right.
all the way individually.
Right, but what I'm saying is we're accepting one policy, which makes us look at other policies. So I'm just making sure that I understand that. Okay.
I'll second Andrea's motion.
Austin has been made and seconded. All those in favor? Okay. Good job. See that? Before I forget anything, we're going to move into the discussion items, future agenda. Is there things that we need to pass out before we sometimes when we leave and we want everybody to be able to share those instead of.
I don't know if they have to treats. She's ready to treats. Oh,
Basics. Don't let her keep doing it. Sometimes we get to this point and we all go home and then she says, we've got a whole bunch of treats. So I want to make sure y'all have treats. Or do we want to just push through? Well, we can have treats while we're doing the last part, right? Okay, we're taking a break.